over the next 9 years in the big woods, I missed 12 bucks.
That's why I tell people there's some people that follow us that for some reason they get stuck on that they got to have a pump.
I said, you know what? I got to have a total mental reset. And I grabbed that gun, I grabbed the Koday, and I went out in a blizzard. And 3 hours later, I shot my first buck in its bed.
Before you invest $2,000 in a Remington pump carbine, you might want to find out if a Winchester, Marlin, Henry, or Savage, or whatever fits you better. They're more available and probably more reasonably priced.
The big main woods are tough, just like Ford trucks. At Row Ford in Auburn, choose from a great selection of Ford F-150s, 250s, and 350 Super Duty, along with Broncos, Explorers, and sporty Mavericks. Ford trucks have the power and dependability to tackle all your needs. And Row Ford in Auburn has a service and personal touch to make an exceptional experience. If you're retired, active military, or a first responder, ask about our special Ford discounts. Go to Row Ford in Auburn, where we always work harder to earn your business.
For all you big woods buck hunters, if you're looking for an ideal base camp for hunting in the big woods, in the Adirondacks and Tug Hill, you gotta call our friends at Christmas and Associates. For over 35 years, they've been providing land and camps to sportsmen, 5 to 50 acres, rivers, streams, and ponds in some of the best locations, affordable prices, and in-house financing with low monthly payments. They can even build their Adirondack-style cabins on property you already own. For more info, call Christmas and Associates at 1-800-229-7843 or go to landandcamps.com. Visit Christmas and Associates on Facebook. Welcome to the Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm your host, Hal Blood, sitting here with my co-host, Lee Shands.
Good morning.
How we doing today, Lee?
We're doing good.
Good.
Everything's good.
Yeah. Yeah, so today we're going to talk with our guest is Mark, who is he's our co-director of strategic partnerships with Chris. And we're going to talk about a new partnership for one, and talk about guns. Our podcast on the we did on calibers and stuff went over pretty good in guns, so we're gonna kind of maybe get a little part 2 into that and talk more about lever guns with this podcast. So welcome, Mark, and give a brief history of your involvement with big woods and right up through to, well, it's actually, you can say it, but it's going to start back in 2010, right?
Actually, it was 2006. So Hal was my guide back in 2006, and that was really my introduction to big woods, actual big woods tracking, still hunting. I had played around in the Adirondacks a little bit before that, but it was really, that was the week where I said, you know what, I want to learn about the tracking art. And but I wanted to short track it. I wanted to make sure that I could learn as much as possible, as quick as possible. So I said, there's no better person than Hal Blood to teach me that, which he did. We had snow a couple days, and then we had some still hunting conditions for the rest of the time, which was awesome because really in the Adirondacks, we don't get snow all the time. So we do a lot of still hunting, and I've killed a lot of bucks through my life still hunting, about, I don't know, 35 of them or something out of the nearly 50 bucks I've killed. So, yeah, that's where my whole big woods bucks trek started. And then I guess it was about 8 or 9 years ago, I started writing articles for Big Woods Bucks and getting more involved, and realized there was something very special here as a company. And And that's when my interest in rifles really took off. And I became basically a homeschooled gunsmith. I started building tracking rifles. I became interested in the idea that there was probably a better way to build guns, lighter, shorter, that could work still hunting, tracking, and stand hunting, and still be accurate and have range. So that was my goal. And so I've spent a good part of a decade spending a lot of money and making a lot of mistakes and uh, figuring out what works in the big woods and what doesn't.
Yeah. So, I remember when you come up, you ended up you got a pump gun and stuff to hunt with me, right?
Yep.
Started there, but now you've kind of drifted away from that a little bit into the levers more, right?
Yeah. So what I had read all the books, the Benoit books, your books. At that time, I think you had one book out, and all the articles and the videos, and I was convinced I needed to get a pump, and that's what I did. And that summer, you had told me to really practice, and I think I went through like 700 rounds. And me and Bob had built our first moving target, and I got the peep sight put on it. And over the next 9 years in the big woods, I missed 12 bucks, and I almost quit. And one day, I guess it was 2015 or 16, I was really dejected, um, because I was like, "What's wrong? Why can't I do this?" Um, and I missed some beautiful bucks in those years, and I just could not seem to put a bullet in the damn thing. And then I would go home and I would shoot and I would be fine. And there's a whole story in my book about that. There's also, by the way, in my book, a couple of chapters on tracking rifles. So if you have an interest in this podcast, you may have an interest in those chapters as well. So in 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, I was out in a blizzard and I was really going to quit. I was just going to be like, obviously I can't do this. And I went back to the hotel and I had my old 30-30 from childhood there. And I had my old Coday jacket, which had a bunch of holes in it. And I said, you know what? I got to have a total mental reset. And I grabbed that gun, I grabbed the Coday, and I went out in a blizzard. And 3 hours later, I shot my first buck in its bed, at 10 yards. And I said, oh my God, I've been shooting levers my whole life. Why did I switch? And so here's my point. Some guns just don't work for people. The way I'm built, I'm a small guy. The pump is a bit awkward because my arms are so short. Even when I cut down the stock, when I shoot and I anticipate the shot, I have a tendency to move the barrel. And I also had problems with that pump as well, which I describe in the book. But ultimately, it's just not a gun that fits me well. They fit me well with a scope, but I discovered that later. So yeah, I went back to my roots, which were Marlins and eventually Henrys, and because I think they improved upon the design quite a bit. And yeah, so I think it's a matter of going with what really is natural to you. And certainly the levers are, and Browning bars are built the same way as levers. They have that sort of humpback receiver. So I've had good luck with those as well. But since then, I've shot basically a big woods buck every year, and it hasn't been an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, you found your niche there. And that's why I tell people there's some people that follow us that for some reason they get stuck on that they got to have a pump Remington to hunt in the big woods. And I've never said that even in my books from the beginning. I said that's what I use and it works for me. But if you like your lever or you like your semi or bolt, whatever you like, just get good with it, and get familiar with it. I always told people, I said, don't keep switching guns anyways. I mean, you might switch until you get dialed in on one, but whatever action, I don't necessarily mean switching guns as much as switching actions. Once you get dialed in on one, keep it. And I'm saying that to new people because I know people, some people have tried, use different guns their whole life and they're good with all of them. But I think I'm trying to gear this a little bit towards, you know, the newer people trying to learn.
I agree. I think, when I do my seminar on tracking rifles, I tell people the easiest way to learn when you're beginning, and it can be intimidating. Going to a gun shop for whatever reason is very intimidating for a lot of people. Go to a gun shop where you can handle the rifles. Go to a local gun store because they tend to be a lot, not one of the big box stores because they're kind of a mess. And get all the action types and get a selection of them. Have the store owner or whatever, the guy that's helping you, the guy or the gal. And I tell people, pick up the gun, close your eyes, and just feel it. And do that one after another. And I'm telling you, there'll be one or two where it just fits. And you put those over to the side, and then you pick between those two or three guns, whichever one feels the best with your eyes open, whichever one has the sights that line or the scope that lines up the best for you. If you do that, it'll be intuitive right from the beginning. And then you have a great starting point. But I learned that by closing the eyes, you'll feel the way your hands are on the gun. You'll feel the trigger. You'll feel everything. Your brain will figure out, oh, that feels comfortable. This doesn't. And a lot of times we trick ourselves if we have our eyes open and we're looking at all the features and we're being sold to, we might buy something that just will not work. These are just the lessons that I've learned. And I've gotten a lot of feedback on that with younger people and kids and people, some who are starting at middle age too, as well. So yeah, that's an experiment you can do.
One of the things that I think is funny in today's market, since Remington's gone under and the pumps are definitely harder to come by now and way more expensive, we don't want people to think that they have to have a Remington pump because that's what Hal hunts with and always has, or the Benoits or whoever, because before you invest $2,000 in a Remington pump carbine, you might want to find out if a Winchester, Marlin, Henry, or Savage, or whatever fits you better. They're more available and probably more reasonably priced. And like you said, go to a gun shop where you can handle some different ones. And I've told people my whole life because they think I've been part of Big Woods Bucks since the beginning. I shouldn't say that. I almost said I've never shot a deer with a Remington pump. My first two big bucks when I was in high school, I shot with a Remington pump, but it was an 870 12 gauge because that's what I had. So I shot my first two big bucks with an 870 12 gauge, but haven't shot one with a Remington pump since. I've shot all of my big bucks with Savage 99s and Winchester lever guns, and then I've started carrying the Henry. We got those Buckhammer, and I never felt the need that I had to use what Hal used or what whoever used. My dad was a Savage 99 guy, and that's probably why I'm a lever gun guy.
Yeah. Yeah. The Savage 99 is an amazing gun, way ahead of its time. I think that, I think the pump is probably the best all around gun. It doesn't have any weak spots. And that's something to say. Every gun sort of has its Achilles heel. But the pump, I think the reason that it is so popular, especially with trackers, is first of all, the tracking art is so hard to do. And you need something that's reliable, accurate, short, light, all those factors. And one of the things I talk about in my book is the fact that the pump really doesn't have any glaring weak spot. And that's hard to find. I would argue that neither do the more popular lever actions. And I think the bolt, I'm good with a bolt. I'm good with just about everything because I shoot constantly. I shoot all through the year, different types of guns. Bolts are a little slower, a little clunkier. And so, but you know what? When I go to the Adirondacks, which is where I hunt, I'm from New York, the predominant rifle is bolt actions and then levers, then pumps and semis. So, and that's based on, me doing surveys and things like that online and with people and at the seminars. So I think just about anything can work. And there's a way to build a tracking rifle, whether it's a bolt action, or whatever action. You can improve upon every design and then just decide what you like. Some people, there are bolt actions, like I'll give an example. The Ruger and Browning bolt actions fit me very well. They don't have long stocks. They're just they have a thinner grip. I have small hands, but for somebody else, a Winchester might work better because it's got a thicker wrist. It's got a little more wood to it. So it all comes down to feel. I'm convinced that most of having a rifle work for you is emotional, and the second part is fit. The rest of it, whether you have a 30-30 or the 28 Nosler shooting 3,200 feet per second, whatever, all those specifics kind of become secondary because we shoot bucks mostly under 100 yards. So, yeah, it's an interesting topic. There's a lot to it. It's a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, I even remember when I was a kid, nobody had like a lot of guns that I knew of anyways, but most people, they had a rifle and a shotgun and a 22, and that's pretty much what people had. And when I was a kid, when I worked where I could buy my own stuff, I bought probably because it was in my price range, a Winchester 1400 semi-automatic 20 gauge, and that was my rabbit gun then, and then I bought that, and I wasn't really thinking about a specific action, I just yeah. And then the next year I bought a double Stevens double barrel 20 gauge, and that ended up being my go-to rabbit gun, all around gun. I did shoot a bunch of deer with that when I was in North Carolina stationed there, but then I ended up I bought when I was in the Marine Corps, I ended up buying a 870. Back then they didn't have chokes, interchangeable chokes. Yeah, dating myself again. They had the Wingmaster Magnum they'd come out with. It had a 30-inch full choke, and that was a pretty good buckshot deer slayer, really. And I think that was my natural procession into the 7600, whatever. But anyways, in the interim, when I'd get out, I was just on a whim. I was in the Sears store down in Scarborough where I lived, and they always sold a few guns. Most of them were Ted Williams. Remember Sears had Ted Williams guns, yeah. But there was a beautiful Browning B2000 shotgun in there. And they only made that for a couple of years. If most people probably never heard of it now, it was kind of a unique design. You could push the shell in. It had a slot on the opposite side to load it, and you just pushed it in, and it would feed automatically the shell in. And you didn't load them in the bottom; you loaded them in the side. So it was different than the other shotguns. And I hunted birds and rabbits with that for a while, and I couldn't hit anything with it. I would miss, and finally I just put it away, never used it again. Couldn't hit nothing with it. So that's when I started realizing that a gun does have to really fit you. Every gun isn't the same, People are built differently, shapes and sizes, and people's hands are different, arms length. So that was my first, kind of like learning curve about that. So, yeah. And I actually have shot, over the years, I'd shot a few other Brownings, maybe at a sporting clay shoot or something. And for some reason, those guns never fit me right. I'm not cracking Browning or anything. It just, for me, wasn't a gun that I could have any confidence in hitting anything with, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Lee, spring's coming. What's
Can't
that
wait.
mean?
Shed hunting for me. I'm going to
And
use my Onyx
Shed
to,
and turkey, yeah.
use
Yeah.
my Onyx to mark my spots. Then
Yeah.
a little bit later, I'll end up doing them for my bear baits when I go up to clean
Yeah.
those up and get them ready.
For turkeys, I like to find the hidden fields. And then for the antler hunt, you know, you can find that there's hidden clear cuts and stuff, or hidden cuts and stuff in your road. So I use it a lot for that in the spring. And I also use it in my clinics. I teach the people in the clinics how to use it. A lot of them, when they come to the clinic, I ask about GPS, and I just tell them if they get the Onyx, they're all set. So to get your Onyx memberships, there's a 20% discount for your first-time Elite membership. Just type in the code BWB. Hey, after 40 years, I've come full circle back to Sierra bullets. And last year I started carrying the Sierra tipped Game King bullets. Didn't shoot a buck, but looking forward to shooting one with them this year.
I'm looking forward to having my daughter use these 190 grain Barnes on bear. I think they work good. They're made for lever guns. They're fast and heavy. And these Barnes 165 Sierra is perfect for deer, but if you want something with a little more penetration and 100% retention, your TTSX. Good bullets, all of them.
Brad Woolley with Big Woods Bucks. This year, I'm going to be running the Barnes Harvest Collection.
Brennan here with Big Woods Bucks, and this year I'm shooting the Barnes Vortex.
Caleb Lewis here with Big Woods Bucks, and this season I am using Barnes Vortex.
Mark Scheeren here. I use Barnes Pioneer and Barnes Vortex ammunition.
Hey, Scott with Big Woods Bucks. I'm shooting Barnes Harvest Collection bullets.
All right, we're all shooting Barnes bullets now, so the deer are in trouble.
I think anything else in the woods is too.
Yeah.
We got it pretty well covered.
And stay tuned for some new projects we're working on with Barnes.
Well, if you think about it too, I've heard you tell this story on multiple occasions. When you bought that was a high-end shotgun. It probably cost twice as much as your Stevens 20 gauge double, which is a pretty simple gun.
Yeah, more than double. Yeah, quite a bit more.
Yeah, but that Stevens double, because I've hunted with you for years, the first time I saw that, I thought, geez, Hal doesn't take very good care of his guns. That thing looks like it's been dragged behind his truck down the road. There's hardly any finish left on it. But it's not that he didn't take care of it. He just uses it all the time. And when you're rabbit hunting, that's pretty harsh condition. You know, it's in when it's really cold and always snow, and you're busting through. The gun's wet all the time. Basically, it's wet, right? And so all the finish is gone, and it looks rough, but it isn't that you don't take care of it. It's just that thing's been used hard and put away wet, literally.
Yeah. I've probably shot not hundreds, but maybe even thousands of rabbits with that over the years. Started with it when I was 16, and we used to shoot. Oh, I know we used to shoot. I probably shot 100 every year.
Yeah. Fits you good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, this brings up an interesting thing that I've been discovering. So you made me remember something, that the first $3 that I shot, the first 3 deer, $2 and a doe, were with I don't even know the manufacturer. It was an old, really old double barrel 16 gauge that was my dad's, and it was a real piece of junk. And at that time we were farmers, and I didn't have a ton of money. I spent most of my money on dirt bikes and things like that, and some other activities I was involved in. And so I carried that old one single bead on the end with slugs, Foster slugs. And it was probably dangerous, to be completely honest. Now that I look back, I'm not even sure it was ever designed for any of that. But I shot those bucks that way with that gun because I was already a pretty good woodsman, you know, because almost all of my time that I spent in my youth was outside because my home life wasn't good. So I escaped to the woods. And me and Bob Dunbar, the other team member, one of our other team members, we grew up that way. And so here's a situation where we were very familiar with the land thousands of acres of farm country and what I call little big woods, 500-acre lots of woods, some of it log, some of it not, and really beautiful country on the Hudson River in New York. Um, and and the gun didn't matter. It just didn't matter. And but here's what's interesting. When you start tracking in the big woods, the margin of error for everything gets smaller and smaller. It gets it's just more difficult. So my period from those early days of being a good woodsman in farm country and then learning the tracking art in the big woods, it was a different game. And I had to find a gun that would work there. It had to fit, and it had to be an adequate gun. But now it's interesting because me and my son were talking. I feel like I could go back out into even the big woods with that old shotgun and probably make it work. If I had snow, I probably could because I'm getting close enough to the deer and I have that confidence. So now it doesn't matter as much about the gun. Now, I, of course, give myself every advantage by picking the gun that I like the most and that fits me. But there is a certain truth about it's the hunter, and not so much the arrow itself. It's more the hunter, especially when you're talking that sort of close encounter with deer. You don't necessarily have to be as accurate as you might have to if it's 150-yard shot. So just kind of a funny thought about how I've learned and evolved through the last 40 years of hunting.
Well, something that goes along with that, Mark, and we can all relate to it. Hal and I have had this discussion before. When they first came out, when they gave us an extra season for muzzleloading hunting, my first muzzleloader was a 50 caliber Hulk and Thompson Center, and I think yours was too, right?
Yeah.
And they were a beautifully made gun. They were well made and everything, but I was used to shooting at running deer or moving deer and having, instant is when you pull the trigger, bang. I'll never forget the first time I shot at a buck that I was tracking. I can still remember, it was like in my mind, it was in slow motion. It was like click, snap, bang, boom. And I'm sure the buck was already out of the picture by the time the thing went off. Well, then, if you're a good hunter, you compensate, then you realize you've got to do something. But I did kill a deer with that gun. But then when they came out with better models, I did the transition, same thing with Hal. I ended up going to a Thunderhawk after that, which was the first inline. But it still had the number 9 or number 11 percussion caps, instead of number 9 primers. And again, that was a progression. And then you learned the whole thing about, if it gets wet or gets snow in it, about having misfires. Well, we still, if Hal looked back, he has it was called a Gonek, right?
Yeah.
And he shot some nice bucks with it. Not because the gun was anything special, but because he was. Because you'd hate to have to go back and hunt with that thing now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I shot a bunch with it, but I also missed a bunch. It didn't go off and didn't get a bunch,
Right. So that just kind of ties in along with it. We're at the point now where we have the muzzleloaders that we hunt with now are basically single shot rifles. But when you pull the trigger, they go bang, and, it's instant gratification, for lack of a better term. But still on those, I find I hunt different with my muzzleloader because I know I've got that one shot and I've got to reload. So I'm way more careful about taking a shot because I know I've got to make the shot good, where if I had my Savage 99 in my hand or my Henry or whatever, as soon as I see it, I'm probably going to start touching them off and just keep shooting. And so, again, that's a progression of thought and training and whatever. But that kind of ties in with what you were saying. There's a progression in everybody in the guns that they use.
I totally agree. I think that the muzzleloader has made me a better hunter. There's no doubt about it. And And so does bow hunting. I always say I was the world's worst bow hunter, and I never was able to get past the uh I don't know, buck fever with a bow in my hand. It mentally screwed with me. So just wasn't that enjoyable. But there's no doubt that I've often thought, I wonder what it'd be like. I know a couple guys that use single shots. They actually handicap themselves with a single shot rifle. And so I asked, there's two guys in the Adirondacks specifically that use I forget what type, like a traditions rifle or something. But I said, why? And they said, because it makes me slow down. And I thought that's pretty smart, because going fast was always my problem. And but yeah, there's a beauty in finally getting competent at the hunting art and not having to worry as much about whether you're going to kill that deer or not. I'm at the point now where I know, especially with a muzzleloader, that I'm going to go slow, and because of that, I have success with it. It forces me into a place that I normally, with a rifle, I might take more chances. Makes me a better hunter, no doubt.
Having said that, though, I can't tell you how many times when I was muzzleloading and I shot at a deer, and either I had a hang fire or a misfire, or I shot through some brush and didn't get it or whatever, how I wanted to wrap that thing around a tree and wish that I had my lever gun in my hand. So yeah, it's we want. I guess the point that we're trying to make is become a competent hunter. It's way more important that you become a competent hunter, and then everything on top of that is gravy. If you get so you can shoot deer with either a piece of junk or a muzzle or whatever, when you get your Remington pump or you get your, lever gun, then it's going to be like, oh, I love this thing. It's so much easier with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's being somebody that really loves lever guns. I grew up on Marlins. I didn't shoot many Winchesters. I shot a couple bucks with Winchesters, but I was always kind of a Marlin guy. And then when the Henrys came out, I was interested because of the tube magazine, how you can load and unload through the tube. And I thought that was kind of neat because I could unload without running it through the action. And then they put the side gate on, and I watched as this company evolved, and then they started doing really smart things, really smart. Like they were improving upon a design that was, around for 100 years. The transfer bar safety in their hammer is really interesting because they took basically the hammer from a revolver and they put it on a rifle, which is really smart because there's no half cock. So when that gun is unsafe, the hammer is resting and it looks like it's sitting right on the firing pin. And it's not. It's hollow. At that point, the transfer bar is lowered as the hammer goes down. If you're not pulling the trigger, the transfer bar slides down and the hammer is covering the firing pin. So for a tracker, if you're the type of tracker like I am, you might have a round in the chamber, but you have it on safe. It's covering the firing pin. So when you go through the spruce, all that snow and ice isn't landing on the firing pin like it will with other half-cock models. So there's little things like that. And then having the tube magazine that you can take out and at the end of the day, dump your shells out without having to run it through the action in a cocked manner, right? So these little small improvements, and through the years that they've changed the ergonomics, they made them in walnut and steel, and it wasn't just because most of the people think the Henrys are brass only models. They're not. The hardened brass. So I started buying them, and then I had an experience, and I'll tell a quick story that really is one of the reasons, because this is going to come out after our deal is announced with Henry, our partnership. I had an experience where I had just bought a 30-30 Henry. It was my second Henry that I purchased. I was up at Scheeren Lake opening day deer season rifle. And I got out of the car and my sling, I never put the sling swivel on, right? And it popped and my front sight landed on the macadam because I was parked on the side of the road and smashed, really dug up the front. I mean, because it was like a lever, it just smacked. And I had no sights. So I went back to the hotel and I said, geez, what are the odds if I call on I don't know if it was a Sunday or a Saturday back in those days, but I called and Anthony Imparato answered the phone. The president of the company answered the phone. And I said, is this Anthony Imparato? He said, yeah, it is. I said, you don't have customer. He's like, I just come into the office and sometimes I still like answering the phone. And he next dayed me at that hotel, a front sight, and I had it the next day and I was hunting. And I thought, I don't know of any company that would do that, you know. And since then I've sort of that's the gun I like the most. So maybe that's emotional for me, but that kind of customer service is one of the reasons that we decided to partner with them, on top of the fact that they have pretty smart features on an old design.
That, and they're making so many different models now. I'm pretty excited about a couple of years ago when they sent us the 360 buck hammers. I was excited to get it, and I carried it that year that they sent it, but I didn't get to hunt with a lot because I was busy guiding. But I did get to carry it some. But I'm excited. Again, the partnership will be announced before this one goes through. But I wanted a 308 Long Ranger, just because that's the model that I wanted. But at the time they couldn't. I'm actually glad that I got the 360 buck hammer now, because if I ever do go to the Midwest, it's a straight wall cartridge, and I think that's why they were manufacturing a bunch of those at the time, because you can use that in some states where you couldn't use the 308 Long Ranger. But I'm really excited. I've told everybody since we heard about the partnership, I wanted that 308 Long Ranger, and I'm hoping to get it pretty soon because my daughter's going to be going on a moose hunt this year, and that's probably the first thing we're going to use it on moose hunt. We're going to use that 308 Long Ranger. And I've told people on the podcast before that my dad's favorite gun and what he shot most of his deer with was a Savage 99 in 308. But the 308 is a hard cartridge to beat for deer hunting. It just is good. And people ask me, the only reason why I ended up hunting with my 99 was in a 250 Savage because it just happened to be the model that I got with a top tank safety, and I'm a lefty. But I hand load heavier bullets for it, and I tell everybody that. But if you can, you'd probably be better off. There's nothing. I like the 250, but if you don't think it's big enough, then get yourself a 308. But I think everybody could agree that you'd have a hard time finding a better deer cartridge than a 308 Winchester, especially for the big woods hunting that we do.
Give you a little update. Skinner Sights. We all know they're the best sight going, but it's a great company because Andy and the crew there are innovative, and they're always thinking up either new models to make a sight for, improve the sights, making mounts for scopes, and now they've come on with their own line of scopes and red dots. Whatever Andy does in the company, it's top-notch, first quality, and they stand behind everything, and we're glad to have them as a partner, and we hope you'll try their sights, and you can trust your life with those, and they're going to get you the game. So get your Skinner sights, and you can trust me that you're going to be glad you did. Just wanted to talk a little bit about minus 33 and the wool they have, which I believe is best wool going, whether it's base layers or your socks or whatever you're wearing. You got to have wool. I've been stressing that for people for years, to wear your wool, whether it's the outerwear or even your base layers and socks. I've been to the tour of the plant, see how they make their socks, and it's quality, the fit is right, and they're going to be long lasting. I've got socks I've had now for several years, and they look like I'll have them for several years more before they even think about wearing out. So I trust my life to wool, and you can too. Minus 33.
I want to tell the public that what Henry has done with us is they were very interested in a collaboration with Hal, Lee, myself, and the team, and our specific requests to make a Big Woods Bucks edition, cataloged edition in their catalog. And the features are, just so everybody knows, first of all, our logo is in the stock. So if you're wondering which model it is, it's going to have the small skull and hoof print at the bottom of the stock, the bottom lower portion. Very, very understated, but just so you know that that's one of our models. And it will come automatically with a Skinner Big Woods Bucks edition tracker peep sight on the receiver. And it will have a Marbles fiber optic front sight. The barrels are carbine length. We had them cut it down and cut it and crown it at 18 inches instead of the regular Long Ranger 20-inch. And it will have upgraded AA wood, very beautiful wood. And everything that Henry does comes from America. The wood comes from the Midwest. The walnut is grown in the Midwest. And they're built in Wisconsin, in the factories in Wisconsin. And I'll have some videos, and we'll have some videos about the factory and what our guns are going through and how they're being built here. We'll be releasing videos on that, so you get to see the whole process. And there'll be other things in the future as well that we have that are very exciting. But I hope that people who want an out of the box tracking rifle. I've been studying this a long time. The other thing that Henry does is they have no ancillary safeties. You just have the hammer. You don't have, so if you're a lefty, you don't have to reach around and hit a crossbolt safety or another tang safety like a Winchester. They didn't put any of those extra safeties on their lever actions. So, and the model that Lee just talked about is the Long Ranger. That one has a box magazine. Obviously, it's not tube fed. And is super, super slick. It's a really, really nice gun. And people have been shooting them 500, 600, 700, 800 yards accurately. They have a very good barrel process. So, yeah, we're very proud of what we've built, and all the work that I did and the team did in experimenting with guns over the last, really 7 years, is coming to fruition and being put into those guns. So, that explains everything.
And one other thing, I don't know if we discussed it, but it's worth mentioning, is you'll see a lot of times on our page, people, like if they buy a Remington pump gun, say they buy a rifle and they want a carbine, so they chop it off and make it into a carbine, and then they have to, contact us or contact Andy at Skinner Sights and say, I need to know the height of the front bead, so this gun, because sometimes if you chop one down or you get a carbine, if the front sight doesn't work right with the Skinner sight, you have to put a different front sight on it. These Henry rifles are going to be set up so when you buy it, it's going to be ready to go. It's going to be to our specification. All you're going to need to do to that gun is put some bullets in it.
That's right. So obviously you'll have to sight in the gun for point of impact, but you have to do that with any gun.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting partnership we're having there, because dealing with people and, between the guiding and being in, the Big Woods business here, we've always tried to help people get prepared for the Big Woods, whether it's clothing or their guns or whatever they need. And that's what we're trying to supply for you. So this is a big deal, really, that Henry will actually make the guns to our specification, and you can buy them and they're ready to go. It's different than, their regular run, and they're actually excited about it too. Obviously, it gives them another, they call it a SKU or whatever, another model, but so it's going to be a win-win for both of us, and again, it's about helping you if you're a lever person or are interested in trying levers. We got something for you that's coming out.
We're just giving another option. And this is the company that's willing to work with us. And I've tested them, for 7 years. I put them through the ringer. And when they supplied us guns I guess it was 2 years ago, me and my son went out on a remote hunt in a blizzard, and we spent 10 days in driving rain, snow, sun, crunchy, cold, warm, and we walked out of the Adirondacks with two nice bucks. And that 360 buck hammer is a wonderful round. It just, all it is a little faster 35 Remington. I mean, that's beautiful big woods medicine. So I do think that it's about being authentic. It's about what you described as providing people with more options that we vetted, and they're a company that really listens. And I think I want to say this too. The Northeast gets ignored by just about every manufacturer out there. It's a strange thing. And I know that the hunters feel that way too. That's why we spend a lot of our time remaking our gear, because nobody makes it. Well, Big Woods Bucks is making it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make the products that you're looking for, asking for, and need, because our needs are a little more drastic than most because of the weather and the climate. So yeah, I'm proud of what we're going to be producing. It's going to be awesome.
I tried to handle me and Chris and Scott went out early October to visit the factory, the manufacturing factory, and meet with some of the guys. And I was anxious to do that because my job when I worked at Remington was for continuous improvement and trying to get the quality back up in the Remingtons, Marlins, whatever they had. So I was interested to look. I mean, I knew they were high quality guns, but I wanted to see. I could see now the process from the CNC machines and the people assembling and all of that. But so as we'd go to different stations there, each model was in kind of a different area they were making it, and I would pick them all up and run the levers in all of them and pull them up and look at the sights and all that. And I was impressed with all of that, and really impressed with, I mean, they lever like butter. All of them do. They're just really, really smooth. But what I really always have keyed in on is the fit and finish, I call it. It's the finish of the wood, the finish of the metal, and how that fits together, both fits together. And it's really, it's extraordinary, really, that how good it is that you don't have any high edges, you don't have any gaps. It's really, really quality stuff. So, yeah, I'm happy to be in a partnership with them because they're going to provide you with a good rifle, and we know they'll stand behind it.
And with the Big Woods models, they're going to be doing so many different ones. You should be able to find one that you want. It's like some guys, Hal and I have a friend that's lived up here in Jackman his whole life, and he's a great hunter, shot a lot of big bucks, and he's a 30-30 guy. Now, a lot of guys don't want a 30-30. They don't think it's enough or whatever. But some guys love the 30-30, so they're going to want that. Some guys are married to their 35. They're going to want that. Some guy that lives in Canada or Alaska, and if he's going to be around bears, he's going to want the 45-70, right? We're going to offer something that anybody can get on board with. And the biggest thing, again, is the fact that it's going to be short and light, so guys that carry it a lot, we carry a lot and shoot a little. That's how I like to describe it. We're carrying all the time and shooting seldom, but yeah, that's why you want it compact and light. But I'm excited about this. Is the most excited I've been about something in Big Woods in a long time, and it's I'm on board, Mark.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from you guys to me?
Yeah, I think we wanted to talk a little bit about what calibers because we kind of, to roll it into, we said a little bit about part 2 of guns and calibers and stuff, but why we chose the calibers with the models to bring out as the Big Woods models.
Yeah. Well, the Long Ranger 308 is the bread and butter of first of all, they don't make a longer action in the long rangers, so we couldn't get 30-06. If they did, it would be a 30-06. And the little brothers, the 308. And now with powders and bullets the way they're designed, if you were to look at the statistics of a 308 today, it equals a 30-06 of the 80s in a shorter package. So any argument that 308 isn't enough for deer and bear in the Northeast or Midwest or even the West, and even in bear country, you can certainly get the right projectiles to be bear medicine even for grizzlies. So a 308 is a phenomenal choice. Doesn't kick brutal. And the gun is going to be south of 7 pounds. That's something I didn't mention, is the Long Ranger will be less than 7 pounds when it's finished. So you don't want, something beating the snot out of you. And I think Lee hit it. That is, people have their preferences when it comes to nostalgic, tube-fed lever actions. They have their pet favorites. I love the 30-30. It's plenty to kill big bucks and black bear. And especially today, you can get rounds that peel along pretty good and are well constructed, copper solids, all kinds of different ammunition that makes that a modern cartridge up to 200 yards, really, for deer. The 360 buck hammer is just phenomenal, and the 360 and 4570 can be used in different straight wall states. You have to look at the regs for that. But I think the 360 is designed around all of the straight wall states. So that's a gun that you could use in one of the straight wall states and then go west, east, and it's a 200-yard lever action gun all day long. And then, then you have the 4570. And of course, the 4570 can be used for anything. It's one of the most universal rounds in the world. You can get anything as small as 250 grain coppers all the way up to 500 grain hammers that will beat you up. It'll knock your fillings out. And you can kill anything on the planet, including elephant. So that's a very, very fun gun with the right ammunition. And then, of course, we'll have a 22. And it'll be just the classic 22. It'll be really affordable, so that you can practice with the same sighting options. And I would also implore everybody to take a look at the Skinner scopes that we have now. They're selling like hotcakes. They're really affordable, and you can do the comparison. Take a look at the Skinner scope, put it against a Loophole, the Trijicon at that $600 to $700 price point, and you'll find they're comparable. And it shoots way above its weight class. And so we have those in stock. They are fantastic. We have the 1x6 and the 1x4, and we now have a red dot as well, which is becoming more popular, and we're selling those like crazy. So there's going to be also Picatinny rails and things set up for our guns that Skinner will be making. So if you're the type of person that wants to run a convertible where you have the open sights and a peep sight on the back, plus you want to put a scope on, there'll be options for that as well. So we have everything. We have everything to kit out your gun the way you want to do it. And I'll be running a scope. That's what I do. I run a 1x4 on just about everything I do. So, yeah.
Yeah, mentioning that 1x4, I really liked the first one. When we got our 360 buck hammers, they didn't have the 1-4 yet, and so Andy sent the 6 power. And it's a nice scope, and I'm sure some people like it, but for the type of hunting we do, it was bigger than what I needed. Now, if you're a stand hunter or you're out west and you need 6 power magnification or whatever, it's going to be the right model for somebody. But when he sent me the 1-4 last year, I slapped that on a 99, and it is so small and light, it doesn't add anything to the gun. And, as far as the weight, and yeah, if you're a big woods hunter but have to use a scope, that 1-4 Skinner scope on top of any of those Henry rifles that we just mentioned. And again, 4 power's enough because we're killing all our deer up close. When I shot my buck last year, I had the thing, I think, on 2 power. I shot it running through a cut, and at 2 power, the field of view was so much. I didn't have any trouble picking him up. And another thing that we haven't mentioned about those is uh, for a bear sight, it has a lighted reticle. It's like a red center, and Hal would tell you, or anybody that's guided a lot of bear hunters, a scope is, I wouldn't say it's a necessity, but it gives you at least another 15 minutes in the evening when you're hunting bear. And with that lighted red center, you couldn't find a better bear sight than that. It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really well made. And the 1x4, by the way, you can switch from green to red. It has both options for within one scope. So, and ironically, most of the time I keep mine off, and I shot my buck last year without the red dot even on, without the illuminated part being on. Yeah, so I look at I think that we're providing to the public what they're asking for. And I hope that I hope our listeners like that.
Yeah, I think they will. I'd just add about the Skinner stuff is that new red dot. It's not a scope, it's just a red dot sight. What I liked about that is most of them, I never cared for them because for me, they're still, you can get snow in them, any of the other types made. But Andy has made those with the lenses are flush, so you can just, there's no place to gather the snow. You might get a little bit in it, but you can just wipe it with your thumb and it's gone. You don't have to dig snow out and stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty cool feature, and they're small and light too.
It's funny that you mentioned that because when he was designing it, we were staying in touch with each other a lot about this, and he went through some real robust testing of that thing because he knew that they would be treated harshly. And he knew the competition at the higher end is mil spec, right? Guys are over back in the day in Afghanistan with these things. So he knew that the competition he had to compare. So when I got the first one that was produced, or one of the first ones, the first run, I was shocked that it's not heavy by any stretch of the imagination, but for the unit itself, it's heavy because everything is made thick, but it's very trim, but it's compact and strong. And he did some testing that he explained to me, and I'll let Andy talk about that himself in one of the podcasts. But it's pretty impressive what he put those things through. So, and you're right, Hal. It doesn't collect. He made the windows, so to speak, flush, so snow will just fall off it, and you can literally just take your finger and just move snow if it does get attached. There's no little crevices for it to collect in, and it certainly isn't like the projected sites where you have a place where snow just lands and cuts off your site completely. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff coming.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, you got anything to add to that?
No, I think we've covered it good, and it's probably around the right timeline for people. And
Yep.
yeah, I just, like I said, I've been part of Big Woods for a long, long time, and I don't know that we've ever had reason to be more excited about something than this. It's big news, and yeah, I'm happy. I'm tickled to death about it.
Yeah, we can give a plug for Mark's book too. I guess we got them ordered. They got sold out, or they're close to being it. But Mark's book it's a good beginner's book because he wrote it from that perspective of the guy that wants to get in to hunt the big woods and how to get started, because that's where he was at. So
yeah. Let me just say a quick little piece about that, and that is Hal's exactly right. I wrote that at a time when I think I had killed 3 or 4 big woods bucks. I had just figured it all out, and I said, there's no book where somebody was willing to be vulnerable about the learning years, and I said, I'm willing to try that. I was a little uncomfortable, but I had to talk about my struggles. But there's also a lot of talk about victory as well. So, and I think that there are a lot of people out there who are at that stage. So hopefully it will inspire you to get through the learning curve and come out the other side successful.
Yeah. So check on the website. If it's there, it's there. If it isn't, it will be. And you new people, get them ordered up. Yeah, I guess that about wraps it up.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Mark.
Being on, it's a good
We'll
one.
see you soon. I know you'll be out there playing with your new Henry here pretty quick. We're going to be getting him here shortly. So, yeah.
Yep. And then I'll be up in Maine. I'll be at your house bugging you.
Yeah, that's good. All right.
Take care.
See you later.
Yep. We'll see you. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. And once again, always tell you to support our sponsors. That's what keeps us rolling. And, hit the subscribe button and we'll keep doing what we're doing to, help your deer hunting and gaining knowledge and bringing things to you that's going to help. And we really know this Henry partnership's going to be a big part of it. So stand by for the next chapter, I guess. And until then, good luck on the trail.